Chapter 10. Identity is the compass. One afternoon, a young sailor asked an old sea captain a question. "Captain," the young man said, "what is the most important instrument on a ship?" The captain smiled. "The compass." The young sailor looked surprised. "What about the engine, the sails, the anchors?" The captain shook his head. "If the engine fails, we can repair it. If the sail tears, we can replace it. If the anchor is lost, we can buy another one. But if the compass is wrong by only 1 degree, the ship may sail for weeks believing it is on the right course, only to discover it has arrived on a wrong continent." Life is much the same. Every one of us carries an invisible compass. It is called identity. It quietly determines our direction long before our actions determine our destination. That is why two people can read the same book, attend the same seminar, listen to the same mentor, and receive completely different results. One leaves inspired and transforms their life. The other returns home exactly as they were. The information was the same, the difference was the compass. Most people believe success comes from learning something new. More often than not, success begins when we stop believing something old. Years ago, I met two brothers who grew up in the same neighborhood. Their father worked tirelessly but constantly complained. Money was always scarce. Whenever bills arrived, he sighed loudly and repeated the same sentence: "People like us never get ahead." Children rarely question the stories they hear, they absorb them. The older brother accepted those words as truth. He became cautious. Whenever an opportunity appeared, he immediately searched for a reason it would fail. When friends suggested starting a business, he replied, "Businesses are for rich people." When offered a promotion, he worried he was not qualified. When investments were discussed, he insisted they were too risky. Without realizing it, he spent his life protecting the identity he's inherited. The young brother heard the same words, but one day a teacher changed his life. She looked him in the eyes and said, "You are not your family's history." Those 7 words stayed with him. He began reading biographies. He listened to entrepreneurs. He met people whose lives looked nothing like the one he had always known. Little by little, he stopped asking, "What do people like us do?" Instead, he asked, "What kind of person do I want to become?" Years later, the brothers looked completely different, not because one was luckier, not because one worked harder. They simply answered two different questions. One kept asking, "Who have I always been?" The other asked, "Who am I becoming?" Identity quietly separated two lives that began in the same house. Nature has been teaching this lesson long before psychologists gave it a name. Every year, millions of salmon leave the rivers where they were born. They travel thousands of miles across the open ocean. The ocean is enormous. There are no roads, no street signs, no maps. Yet after years at sea, something extraordinary happens. The salmon begin swimming back, not to just any river, to the very river where their life began. Scientists explain that they are guided by the astonishing biological memory, allowing them to recognize the unique chemical signature of their birthplace. No one tells them where to go. Something inside them already knows. Human beings are not so different. We often return to emotional rivers that feel familiar. A person raised in constant criticism may unknowingly seek relationships filled with criticism. Someone raised in chaos may feel strangely uncomfortable when life becomes peaceful. Another who grew up believing love must be earned may spend years trying to prove their worth. The destination changes, the pattern does not. Our identity keeps guiding us back to what feels like home, even when home was painful. That is why changing your life sometimes feels like swimming against the invisible current. You are not only changing your habits, you are changing your internal map. Several years ago, I watched on YouTube an interview with a successful businessman. The interviewer asked him, "When did you become wealthy?" He answered, surprised everyone. "I became wealthy years before I had money." The audience laughed. He continued, "When I was broke, I still acted like someone who respected money. I paid my bills on time. I kept my promises. I learned every day. I stopped blaming people. I stopped saying I was poor." The money arrived later. His bank account changed only after his identity changed. Many people reverse the order. They say, "When I become rich, I will think like a wealthy person. When I lose weight, I will become healthy. When I succeed, I will become confident." Life rarely works that way. The seed comes before the harvest. Identity comes before evidence. Think about a passport. A passport is more than a document. It declares where you belong. Imagine someone moving to another country but refusing to change anything inside. They continue living by yesterday's assumptions. They insist they do not belong. Although they have a new address, they still carry an own identity. Many people do exactly this. They change jobs but keep the identity of failure. They change relationship but keep the identity of being unworthy. They move to a new city while carrying the emotional passport of yesterday. No matter where they go, their own identity stands every experience. The scenery changes, the story remains the same. The greatest migration of human beings is not from one country to another, it is from one identity to another. There is a true story about a young elephant in Asia. When it is small, trainers tie one of its legs to a sturdy wooden post. The baby elephant struggles with all its strength. For days it pulls, it pushes, it refuses to surrender. Eventually, exhausted, it stops trying. Years pass, the elephant grows into one of the strongest animals on earth. By then, it could easily uproot the same wooden post with a single step. Yet it rarely tries. Not because the rope is strong, because the memory is. The rope no longer holds the elephant, its identity does. How many invisible ropes do we carry? I am too old. I am not educated enough. I have failed before. I am unlucky. I have always been this way. These are not facts. These are ropes woven from own conclusions. The saddest prison is the one with an open door. One of my favorite stories is about the famous violinist Joshua Bell. One morning he dressed like an ordinary commuter. He stood inside a busy subway station and began playing one of the most beautiful pieces ever written. The violin in his hand was worth millions of dollars. His performance was extraordinary, yet thousands of people hurried past without stopping. Only a handful paused to listen. The music had not changed, the audience perception had. Most people assumed he was just another street musician because of where they found him. Identity works the same way. Sometimes the world misjudges us. More often, we misjudge ourselves. We carry extraordinary gifts while believing we are ordinary because we have become accustomed to seeing ourselves through own eyes. A diamond buried in the ground does not become less valuable because it is covered with dirt. Its value was always there. It simply needed to be uncovered. There is another quiet truth about identity. It is built through the words we repeat. Every time you say, I'm terrible with names, I can't speak in public, I always procrastinate, I never have enough, your mind is listening, your brain is constantly collecting evidence to support the person you claim to be. Eventually, those words become habits. The habits become character. The character becomes destiny. The ancient philosophy Epictetus once wrote that people are disturbed not by events but by the view they take of them. In the other words, a story matters more than the circumstance. Change the story, the identity begins to change. So perhaps the real question is not what do I want to achieve? Perhaps the deeper question is who is the person capable of creating that life? If you dream of becoming a writer, begin seeing yourself as someone who writes. If you dream of becoming financially free, begin making decisions as someone who values wisdom over impulse. If you dream of becoming a person of peace, stop introducing yourself to the world through yesterday's wounds. Identity is never created in one dramatic moment. It is shaped quietly, one decision, one promise kept, one courageous choice, one honest conversation, one small act repeated until it becomes natural. Like a compass, it adjusts 1 degree at a time, and 1 degree repeated over many years can lead you to entirely different destination. People often spend their lives chasing new goals, yet goals are only milestones along the road. Identity is the traveler. When your identity changes, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your habits change. When your habits change, your future changes. The beautiful truth is this: you do not have to become someone else. You only have to become a person you were always capable of being before fear, disappointment, and own labels convince you otherwise. The world does not need another imitation. It needs a real person hidden beneath years of borrowed identities. Because people do not rise to the level of their goals, they always return to the level of their identity. Change the compass, and every road begins to lead somewhere new. Thank you for listening, and I hope you like it. Please click subscribe to support my channel.